Hey guys, so today I will be talking about the Realme 7 Pro. I have used this phone for quite a time now. Actually, I've had it as my secondary phone while I was reviewing the Realme 7, and then I switched to the Realme 7 Pro as my primary phone after it was done. Regardless of that, how is the Realme 7 Pro in real life? Should you pay more for the Realme 7 Pro or just go for the regular Realme 7 instead? I will talk about all of that in this video. But before getting started, a huge shout out to Osmo Cables for sending over this amazingly rugged fast charger. It's called the Osmo Extra Charge. Okay, most of the time what happens is native chargers that come with the phones are not that durable. For that, Osmo has this wide range of chargers with these high-quality rugged cables that don't get damaged that easily. The brick also has an LED indicator that can come quite handy. The one I have has two options for cables, USB-A and USB-C, so if you have another cable lying around, you can charge two devices at once, which I think is really cool. If you want further information about Osmo cables, you can check their website. Anyway, let's get on with the review. First of all, the design of the Realme 7 looks incredibly attractive, especially this silver color variant that I have with me. The company has given up on the gradient finish this time, and this dual tone finish looks different and overall nice. I also have to give credit to Realme for nailing the ergonomics as well. The phone is pretty lightweight with good grip, and it's not bulky like the last generation Realme 6 Pro or its closest competition, the Poco X3. The build here is not glass, but rather it's plastic, so it can get scratched easily in the long run. I, for one, do not mind the plastic build, but glass would have certainly been better. And one more thing, the Realme 7 Pro is a well-built phone too. If you have watched the Realme 7 review on our channel, you may know that I have huge concerns regarding its build quality, but that's not the case here. Moving on, I also like the display quality of this device. It has good touch sensitivity and the color reproduction is fantastic as well. Here you get a slightly smaller 6.4 inches AMOLED compared to the 6.6 inches IPS LCD panel on the Realme 6 Pro. It still retains the regular 60Hz refresh rate, but you guys know that I would always go for a 60Hz AMOLED display over a 90Hz IPS one. Because of this, I do not actually mind the trade-off Realme has done on the 7 Pro. Similarly, the punch hole cutout on the top is not obtrusive at all and is a lot better than the bulkier pill-shaped cutout we saw on its predecessor. The display can also get fairly bright, so all is well on the display front. And since this one's an AMOLED screen, you get the fingerprint sensor baked inside the display itself, which works perfectly most of the times. Moreover, it also comes with always-on display, so I could not be happier about Realme 7 Pro's display. Well, although this display is receiving a thumbs up in almost all the aspects, I do have a little concern, which is the fact that it is only protected by the Gorilla Glass 3 Plus, while I think Realme should at least be offering the Gorilla Glass 6. Matter of fact, this is a direct downgrade from the Realme 6 Pro, which provided a much tougher Gorilla Glass 5. Now on to the performance. After having used this phone for about a month, I am not particularly disappointed by it, nor am I too excited about it either. What I mean is, the Realme 7 Pro is supposed to be an upgrade over the Realme 6 Pro, but still you get the same level of performance as it houses the exact same Snapdragon 720G chipset. Maybe they could have gone with the Snapdragon 732G, which is slightly better. I don't know, but the newer Snapdragon 750G would have been really great. Maybe we will get to see that on the Realme 8 Pro instead. Anyways, Snapdragon 720G has not particularly disappointed in terms of performance because, well, it is still a well-performing SoC that can handle fair share of load while being power efficient as well. I have not faced a single problem on my everyday use with this device. Normal tasks run flawlessly, apps open fast, and multitasking is a breeze, even with heavy apps. It's only while gaming that I kind of wish the phone could do better, and those were the times I wanted the Realme 7 Pro to have a better processor. Yes, you can get a pretty smooth 35 to 40 FPS gameplay under smooth graphics and ultra frame rates in PUBG Mobile, but still, when it comes to gaming, I am greedy for a little bit more. Other than PUBG, I played Call of Duty that can go up to very high graphics and very high frame rates and give smooth gameplay. Also, other games like Asphalt 9, Infinity OPS, etc. run very well on this phone. Okay, now getting to the software, you're greeted with the Realme UI 1.0 on top of Android 10, and next month it is scheduled to receive the Realme UI 2.0 update based on Android 11. And Realme has considerably done well with the security updates on this device too. At the time of writing this review, my unit is running on September security patch, which is not bad for a mid-range phone. Yet there is always room for doing better in this regard, I guess. Now let's move to the cameras. The Realme 7 Pro has 4 cameras at the back and a 32 megapixel sensor for selfies. Sadly, the telephoto lens that we saw on the Realme 6 Pro has been replaced by a not-so-useful depth sensor, which is a big letdown if you ask me. Anyways, the 3 remaining lenses here are an upgrade. You get a new 64 megapixel Sony IMX 682 wide-angle sensor, which, by the way, every other mid-range phone is using these days. Then there's an 8 megapixel ultra-wide-angle lens and finally a 2 megapixel macro sensor. About the images from the primary lens, I actually am quite happy about them, to be honest. Under a well-lit condition, they are detailed and have a good dynamic range. The best part is the colors in the pictures, as they look very pleasing to the eyes. Although you will instantly figure out that there is some color processing being done to make the images more popping. Likewise, the wide-angle images have similar colors too, which is not the case with many other mid-range phones that I have tested so far. They are not as detailed as the primary camera, but look good nonetheless. Moving on, I am fond of the Realme 7 Pro's portrait images too. The phone manages to make the sky look really good in portraits, which is why I prefer the Realme 7 Pro's portraits over Poco X3's. Also, the subject skin looks a little better on the 7 Pro. On the other hand, the macro images, like on most mid-range phones, are pretty much useless. And since I'm also using the Poco X3, whose review should be out in about a week's time, I tested these 2 cameras against each other because they use the same Sony sensor. What I found was the details on both the devices were pretty much the same. However, Realme's images are slightly punchier than Poco's, which is more noticeable in landscape images. So if you make me choose, I would definitely go for Realme's camera setup because its images have a better dynamic range and pleasing color scheme. Okay, moving to the selfies, both the Realme 7 Pro and the Poco X3 have this unusual red tint in them. As a result, I am not a big fan of both of them. But the 7 Pro is capable of maintaining better background colors than the X3. In portrait selfies though, both the phones cannot manage good dynamic range and exposure in the background. Talking about the nighttime images, the pictures from the Poco X3 look slightly better as they have better details and natural looking colors, while Realme saturates its pictures a bit more and is also inferior in details. There's a dedicated night mode on both the phones, whose performance is neck to neck in regards to detail preservation and maintaining exposure. But again, Realme saturates the images here too, making them look a bit more processed and unnatural. So this is the one area where Realme can do better with a software update. For videos, like any other mid-range phone, the Realme 7 Pro 2 can go up to 4K 30 FPS. At this resolution too, the footage is stable enough, so I'm really happy about that. However, the dynamic range is not as good as the 1080p footages. Also, if you want higher FPS, then you have the option to shoot in 1080p 60 FPS as well. Although it lacks EIS, it is fairly stable with a good dynamic range and colors. So it's not wrong to say that the cameras on the Realme 7 Pro work well. Yes, technically the macro lens is not that useful and I would have really preferred a telephoto zoom lens instead, but the primary camera on this device does a good job. So overall, I am really happy with the cameras on the Realme 7 Pro. Extending my happiness is the phone's battery life too. It has a 4500 mAh cell, which I know is not a sizable upgrade from the 6 Pro. But with a more energy-efficient Super AMOLED panel and a 60Hz display, it delivered a slightly better endurance than that of the Realme 6 Pro. Not to forget the fact that it is coupled with a whopping 65-watt SuperDart fast charging support that fills up the device in no time. But with this, you will have to be a little worried about your phone's battery health over the years, as a faster charging mechanism degrades your battery a bit quicker. Additionally, the speakers on the Realme 7 Pro give a stereo output which sounds very impressive on paper, but in reality they're not that good. I mean, they're loud and the audio is fairly balanced as well, but they kind of lack depth. However, it is more than fine for casual listening though, and the audio from the headphones sounds good enough too. So, is the Realme 7 Pro worth spending your money on? Well, yes, considering that it almost ticks all the boxes of a good value for money smartphone. It is definitely better than the Realme 7 with a better build, with a superior AMOLED display and better thermals. However, call me a little greedy, but I think Realme could have made slightly better decisions with the specifications. For instance, giving up the 65-watt fast charging to put in a better chipset would have been a wiser choice, considering fast charging technology degrades battery health in the long run. And we all know that the last generation 30-watt fast charging is still very fast. Or instead of a better chipset, the company could have given a 90Hz screen. I mean, imagine if a 90Hz AMOLED screen came for the Realme 7 Pro's price, that would have really made it stand out. So that was all for our review of the Realme 7 Pro. Which mid-range phone would you choose for yourself? The Realme 7, 7 Pro or the Poco X3? Do let us know in the comments below. Till then, I'm Pratima and thank you so much for watching.